Alright, so if you're just joining us, you are going to need a blanket, likely a pillow. You might want a pillow as well. Technology, test, test. Oh, I know, the kitty's like super vocal. I think our neighbors, which are our friends, threw her over the like the barrier between us because she can get really, really loud and annoying. And for some reason, usually when she's in here, she'll sleep. But you might see her pouncing around unless she gets really, really vocal. So Ian's gonna feed her. So hopefully she gets a little quieter. As I was saying, you're gonna need something for a strap itself, or something that's like a strap. Could be a really big sock, could be a pair of pants, could be a blanket. You won't be using the blanket and the strap at the same time. So if you're like, oh well, do I need two of those things? Just one is fine. A block is always handy, but you might not need it today. It's just nice if you want to sit on something, and I always recommend a cushion to sit on, because we are going to do some seated things this time. So I'll just let you guys all join here and get comfortable for our workshop today. I'm working with two screens, which is always fun. So if you're on one or the other and it looks like I'm looking somewhere else, that's why. So our workshop today is about an hour and a half. Could go a little less, could go maybe 5 minutes more or something like that. So just accommodate as you need. And if there's any difficulty with the sound or anything like that, please just send me a little note, okay? All right, I'm just going to adjust my time. It's like 2 computers and a phone. Okay. So how are we all doing today? So the nice thing about our class today is that we are going to do a practice at the end, the end, closer to the halfway through mark, and it'll be very gentle, very, very gentle today. If you took my last workshop, that was a little more invigorating. This one's going to be a little more gentle and breath focused, but the challenging piece of it isn't necessarily the asana, the physical form, it's the control of the breath. When we control or shift or manipulate our breath, we start to shift and control the state of our mind, which can be way more challenging than any physical asana posture. So we're going to work a lot with that today. We're going to talk a lot about breath today as well. So welcome everyone to this beautiful workshop that we're doing for rebalancing for difficult times. We're going to have a few different topic areas, but because we might all be in this adventure together, we may not all be experiencing the same kind of effects that this change in our lives has brought. So that can, as a practitioner, I can only speak so much in generalities, and because there's so many different avenues of the ways people are experiencing this trauma, essentially. It is very much a trauma for everyone, and it will probably have a little PTSD like down the line, where this is where doing this work now becomes really important, so we can either minimize or exclude that impact in the future. So my ask to you, because I already know what I'm going to be talking about, but if there's something or the way you're living specifically, or you're impacted in a specific way and you feel comfortable with sharing that. Most people don't put their names as their Instagram handle. Even if you do, like, being able to speak in a community like this and be heard and be seen with what you're experiencing can be a very powerful and empowering experience. So my request is, if there's anyone that has a very specific experience that they're working with right now and they wish to share and have a question to that, it can be really powerful for the whole group as well as for you, and it gives me some tools of direction as well beyond what I've already planned, that may be extremely relatable to everyone as well. So you can do that now if you wish. And then we're going to do an official opening with 3 ohms. And if you don't really Om, or that's a really new thing for you, you can simply listen, and that's a beautiful way to still include yourself if that's just not something that you feel comfortable with doing. But Om is it's a sacred sound, it's a sacred vibration, and the vibrational frequency is the same as our vibrational frequency, our highest frequency, which is our true nature, our true selves within our spirit or soul, whatever you wish to call it, is the same vibrational tone and quality as Om. So when you Om, you're literally connecting to that deepest part of yourself, and it also has beautiful clearing and purifying qualities to it when we're starting or ending a practice. Okay, so just a reminder that if anyone, as we're speaking about something, has big, this is happening to me, or I'm feeling this way, please feel free to write it in the comments, okay? So let's bring our hands on our thighs, wherever's comfortable, face up or face down. Let's sit up a bit onto a cushion. If you're not on a cushion, it's very helpful for the low back. And as we sit up nice and tall, I'm going to see if we can let the sit bones relax a little bit. The navel will be slightly drawn in, and then our heart is going to grow a little more towards our head. So not a back bend, just a little uplifting feeling. Okay, you're welcome to close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice. We'll start with just 3 breaths in and out of our nose, feeling our belly and ribs expand and collapse. Bring us into a bit of center within ourselves. Jaws relaxed. The tongue is off the roof of our mouths. Let's bring our hands, palms together at heart center, keeping our eyes closed. And we'll do 3 rolling Oms, which means once I start the Om, once you finish your Om, you just go right into your next one. You don't have to wait for me. Okay, let's take a nice big breath in through the nose to prepare. And we'll begin. Beautiful. Let's open our eyes, relax our hands down. We're going to start with a little bit of an exercise today. So we are going to do a lot of learning about breath work and, of course, tools for rebalancing. And just as like a disclaimer, as I go through this conversation with you, if there's anything that doesn't really align to you or you're not really sure about, it's much better, and this is even how my teachers have taught, to instead of just like immediately throw it in the trash in your mind and it's gone forever, it's much better to just kind of like throw it on a shelf in your mind where it's still there, you know it's there, but you haven't completely dismissed it. Because sometimes as we grow older, often when we grow older, we grow wiser. And sometimes there's those little pieces of information, those little nuggets that in our maybe ignorance when we're younger or less wise, myself included at times, we've just thrown it out. So it's better if we just pop it onto a shelf. Hi. Pop it onto a shelf for maybe in the future we might use it, or we never use it, and we pass on for this life and we're no worse for wear, right? It just kind of stayed on its shelf. Also, I'm speaking a lot to all of the inner work and inner practices that I've done through the yogic practice, as well as working with divine feminine, divine masculine, and as well as very common like psychology-based tools as well. I am not a doctor, so if something doesn't align to you, then you have to use your discernment and what's going to work best or what really aligns to you. Okay. So our first exercise is going to be fun. I often do this in my retreats, and it's just a way to really drop into where you're at in this moment. And with all of this kind of chaos that's been going on outside of ourselves and this massive forced shift that we've all experienced, it's like we were still living really outside of ourselves. So we all have an outer world where we see everything and we take in that information and we make decisions and we go about our life. And then we have an inner world, and this is where we connect to our higher selves, our inner wisdom, where we connect to our self-love and self-care, and our wholeness and our happiness ultimately comes from our inner world. Now, in a situation like this, where we're very confined, maybe we're individually confined, we are not with family, we're not with a partner or sisters or brothers or whatever, or we're like stuck and with our family, which can be beautiful at times, but can also be like a bit challenging. And it's very important in this time that we're being heard, we're being seen, and we're being loved. So we're being acknowledged, we're being, someone's like seeing us and acknowledging how we're feeling. We're taking responsibility for that feeling, and then we're also receiving support and love in the time of challenge. So what I'd like everyone to do on this call here is I'd like you to all write in your little box the emotions you're feeling right now. It doesn't have to be a story, just straight, simple emotions. Maybe it's happiness, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's overwhelm, maybe it's anger. It's really important that we take a moment to really acknowledge how we're feeling, and then actually put it out there to be heard and seen by others. And in this environment where we've all come together because we're all like, we need this, we need community, we need to find some balance in this, environment that we're living in now. And it's really important that we do this acknowledgement to each other. Really, really important. And it can be scary, no doubt. It can be like, oh, you want me to do what? But these are the things that break down these pieces of difficulty within ourselves. Sometimes there are patterns, conditioning, barriers, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat it back to you. So it just came in hurt, feeling hurt. Yeah, sadness, heaviness. Absolutely. That I'm sure there's many of us are feeling a lot of negative emotions right now. So don't be shy, there's no judgment here. When we're working together as a community, that's true community. We hold space for each other. We really acknowledge each other, So contentment with myself and who I am, beautiful, So it can be both sides. It can also be very neutral. Loneliness, yeah. The isolation, fear and exhaustion, absolutely. All your feelings that you're experiencing are valid. You are valid, and how you're feeling is valid. And this is important to remember, that when you have a feeling, no matter what anyone else says around you, that you're valid, and it's okay to have that feeling. Calm, yeah, we're feeling calm. So please, I know there's quite a few of you on this call, so please don't be shy. Remember, when you do this, it kind of takes a burden off your heart. You're being heard, you're being seen, even if it's just within our beautiful group of 20 people here. And you're also giving courage to others to speak up how they're feeling and to be able to really acknowledge. That's the first step in rebalancing. This first exercise is simply acknowledging your feelings. And if we haven't learned how to do that in our childhood, maybe we had like a narcissistic parent or something like that, then we wouldn't have learned how to care for ourselves in that way. Shame, depression, anxiety, lonely, confusion, all very valid feelings for the time we're in. And even if we weren't in this time, they'd still be valid feelings. If it was before all this corona stuff, they would still be valid feelings, no matter where you are on that spectrum of emotions. So I'm going to give us a few more moments, because I know there's a few of you probably just thinking it over and building your courage and bravery to speak. Happy overall, but this week not motivated. Yeah, feeling uninspired, not motivated. That isolation can do that when we're not interacting as much with the world or our friends, and some of us are extroverts and we really need that interaction. Some of us are introverts, probably even the introverts are like, this is too much, you know? So again, very valid feelings, not feeling inspired or motivated. So let's go ahead. I'll tell you how I'm feeling. I feel a mix of emotions of both calm. Some days I feel angry, and it's not angry for any reason, you know, it's just how that emotion is showing up that day, how I'm processing this experience. That's the emotion showing up and processing it. Sometimes I feel anxiety. Sometimes I feel really calm, like really peaceful. So we got some more coming in: worried, uncertain, and a bit reactive. Yes, that's beautiful for saying that. Overwhelmed, but grateful for this time for self-reflection and slowing down. Yeah, some of us have that space, you know, to be able to really take this time to do that. Severe ups and downs, acknowledged. Yeah, you know, and when we say these things, when we write this in our little box here and say how we're feeling, other people, you know, some of the people in here might be thinking, oh, this is just me. This is just me. I'm just sensitive, or, you know, I'm not good with change, or whatever excuse or story we put in our mind to try and explain away our emotions and our feelings. When we acknowledge like this, we're showing others that, oh, you're feeling that too. It's not just me. This is human. We're human, and we all experience these emotions, accepting and helpless at the same time. Yeah, because we've lost a sense of this control in our life, and yet the yogic perspective is also to accept each moment as it comes. So it's difficult when we have that interplay within us. So I'm going to move on now. If at any time you feel like you have an emotion come up and you just want to just put it out in there, please do so. Okay, and I'll acknowledge it, and you know, you can be seen, you can be heard, not just from me, but everyone that's on this call can acknowledge how you're feeling and really validate how you're feeling, and know that it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, and that it is absolutely valid, and no one can say that it's not valid. And even if there are people in your life that are trying to, like, you know, talk it off or soothe you or whatever it may be, just really remember one piece from this whole video, other than the breath work we're going to do, is that your feelings are valid. And also, they are temporary. They're changeable. Emotions and feelings are changeable. I don't think I've ever had a consistent day of how I felt. It's always changing, always fluid, right? Which means that the way you're feeling right now, or even these last few weeks, will change. It will shift. Okay, so we're gonna continue moving on. So that was the first part. Was what you just did was you created conscious awareness of how you're feeling in the moment, and this conscious awareness brings that acknowledgement that you need to bring on a regular basis. This is something you can do every day at some point in your day, or maybe once a week if you have the time to do it. I know some of us are still working full time and some of us aren't. Is just to simply sit, take a few breaths, and just actually see how you're feeling. And if you want to go one step further, you can write this down if you want. You can actually say, okay, I'm feeling heavy. Where is that feeling in my body? So now we're connecting the emotions and mind to the body and creating that unity. So maybe it's, oh, I feel it here. Or there's a little bit of tension here. Or maybe it's here. Right? So that's one thing that we can do to rebalance. That's something, an action we can do kind of in and outside of ourselves, is we can sit there and feel what's going on. Right? And then we can acknowledge, where is it? Am I feeling this in my body? And making that acknowledgement and connection, because we often, the body, when it's very passive, the emotions, or we're unable to translate or process our emotions in the moment, the body is like a container, and it's trying to keep us safe, but it's taking on that stress and tension of our emotions. So if you can acknowledge your emotion and then say where it is in your body, you're taking that one step more to releasing that emotion from wherever it's sitting in your body. So that first stage is conscious awareness. Just build awareness around how you're feeling, and then acknowledge yourself. Your feelings are valid. You can also write down how you're feeling in a journal. Some of us are big journalers, before you go to bed or right when you get up. Whenever you feel the most influx of emotions, and this might just take a little mindfulness in your day to like check in, how am I feeling today? You can do that. Now, with this conscious awareness, we might have some conversations with friends or family. We're probably often talking about the coronavirus and how we're feeling, and maybe we're not talking about how we're feeling. But what we can do is acknowledge that when someone's telling us this is how I'm feeling, and this is how we can respond to people, which is just as important this time of community and connecting to one another, is we don't need to fix how they're feeling. Now, for those of us that are very caretaker-like, we're going to want to try and fix how people are feeling. Try not to do that. Try to shift your perspective, and when we simply listen to someone and how they're feeling, and we can say, oh, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you, and I see you on that, and I feel you. That's what's called holding space. And this is something we can do for each other. So if we're in a group like a family dynamic, or you're with roommates or something like that, or you're connecting with people over Zoom, you can start your conversations at least once a day or something like that to first say, okay, how are you feeling today? Okay, how am I feeling today? And then you just have some silence for each other, looking at each other, and this is the acknowledgement. This is the like, I am here for you and I hold space for you, and I don't need to fix you. I don't need to fix how you're feeling. Even if it's what we consider a negative emotion, I don't need to fix that. That's how you're feeling, and that's okay. Kind of conversation. What you can do is say, can I do anything for you? And it's a way to acknowledge how they're feeling without that, and you need to do something about it. Right? So we can just say to them, can I do anything for you? Is there anything I can do to help you? What can I do for you? And that really opens, you're seeing them and you're offering love. These are three really important things to work with right now, especially when we're working with family or friends or with ourselves. That same philosophy can apply to ourselves by simply sitting and acknowledging how we're feeling, seeing and hearing, okay, where is in the body, and then what can I do to give myself more love today? What can I do to help myself? Okay? So that's kind of the first piece, conscious awareness. Now, the second piece is once we build our conscious awareness, we can start to build some responsibility for ourselves. Yes, this was thrown on us. It was fairly unexpected. Depending on where you are in the world, it was really unexpected. And what we can do is now we can acknowledge how we're feeling. We can acknowledge this is what's happening. And we can start to take responsibility for ourselves. Because, yes, all this stuff is changing in our outside environment, but our inside world is up to us, and that can be really hard. If you're in a really deep state, a difficult state, to pull yourself out of that. This is coming from myself, who has had anxiety, still has anxiety, not as bad now, and has had full-blown depression for like 10 years. So when I say this with a lot of gentleness and a lot of compassion and empathy if you're in that state. Because I have been in a very deep state like that before. So when I speak to this, responsibility is important, and it can start in very small ways. You can even tie into the conscious awareness, doing that practice I just spoke about. You're taking responsibility for your emotions. You're taking responsibility for loving yourself in any state, whether we're happy or sad. We're loving no matter which state, and we become unconditionally loving towards ourselves when we practice these kinds of conscious awareness techniques. So the responsibility is we can empower ourselves with compassion. So that loving kindness, that compassion within ourselves, when we can say it's okay and we stop judging ourselves. Non-judgment is part of taking responsibility for how you're feeling. Okay, so non-judgment is our responsibility for ourselves. Stop judging yourselves. Let go of those stories that you're telling yourself that make you feel worse, that upset yourself, and really start to question those stories. And when we're talking to others or we're seeing the news, which is the worst, try not to watch the news very much. Only when it's absolutely necessary for information. Otherwise, just don't watch it. It's just not healthy. Read it if you have to. It's probably a little bit better than watching it. It's too stimulating for the mind. So non-judgment towards everything outside of yourself too. So if we learn non-judgment, which starts with conscious awareness, so those techniques of acknowledging our feelings and being compassionate towards them, we start to peel away the layers of judgment on ourselves. So as we build this non-judgment for ourselves, we start to do the same for others. So it's one thing to say, I want to be non-judgmental to others and start practicing that to others. But ultimately, if you're not practicing that to yourself, are your thoughts and feelings kind? Are your thoughts and feelings loving towards yourself? Then it's going to be very hard to do that for others. Even if you're trying to consciously be non-judgmental to others, you have to start with yourself. And that's a rebalancing technique. Because when we're really harsh and judgmental on ourselves, we're not balanced. And we're usually not very healthy. We're not emotionally healthy. If we're not emotionally healthy, the mind starts to take on those emotions. Mind takes on the emotions. The body takes on the stress. Yeah? So these are some tools specifically for responsibility. And just know that all the things I'm giving you, if you just did the first conscious awareness, that would be enough. And if you wanted to move into some of these other things later, you could. But that would be enough with the breath technique I'm going to give you. So we can step into boundaries. Okay? Boundaries are where we consciously understand what is healthy for us or what's unhealthy for us in both emotional, physical, and mental way. So boundaries, at least for myself, I've always had to put boundaries in for other people, for family, for friends, for situations, to keep myself at my best. And boundaries are kind of like a little bit of selfishness, but it's not selfishness in the way that our society deems it to be. I recently read the book and have been passed this book on to a lot of my family members because a lot of people don't know how to do self-care, how to do these kinds of things. This is self-care ultimately. And it was called The Art of Extreme Self-Care. So if you want a book to read after this, The Art of Extreme Self-Care. There's only one, so I can't remember the name of the author. And one of the things in there that I will never forget, because I felt like it really put the words to the feelings that I've been doing for a long time, is that selfishness leads to selflessness. Selfishness leads to selflessness, being selfless. So we need to consciously put in these boundaries for ourselves. So if you're living with people, especially, and you don't have a lot of space, this is where, we start to build our communication. So I'll just give you some examples. So like for me, there are times when I do feel heavy. I do feel exhausted. I didn't even do anything, did it? You know what I mean? Like some of you said that in your words, that you felt exhausted and heavy. And in those days, I just don't have the energy to necessarily listen to a story someone's telling me. It's actually draining for me, makes me more exhausted. I'm not really listening to them. They're going to feel that, and then it could end up in conflict. So a boundary that I can create for myself is in that moment when I recognize that feeling in my body, just like in stage 1 in conscious awareness, I can say, hey, I am interested in your story. I would love to hear it another time. But right now, I'm just feeling like I don't have the energy or the awareness right now to listen consciously to you and really give you the energy you want in this story. Can we talk a little bit later? And you've just avoided conflict. You've avoided not being an active listener or a good partner, a good friend, like being able to see, hear, and send them love. You've been able to put that boundary in very gently and saying, actually, you know what? I'm so sorry, but I need to listen to the story later if that's okay. That's a boundary. That's you acknowledging your feelings, realizing what that moment is having an effect on you, and then putting a boundary in place. And this is where this selfishness leads to selflessness, because the more you do this, the more you put in these boundaries, the more that you can know what is really helpful for you to be a loving, whole, compassionate person. By taking care of yourself, it's much easier to take care of others. It just becomes natural. The selflessness becomes natural because you are full. You're whole. So you can write down, this is a good exercise for journaling, write down some boundaries. And if you're like, well, I don't really know what my boundaries are, think of all of your discontents, things that really bother you, and you'll find a boundary that's not in place. So if you think about a situation in your life where something really bothered you, made you angry, made you sad, anything like that, that's a discontent, there's a boundary that needed to be put in place there. Someone was doing something unknowingly or knowingly, and you were letting it happen because you weren't aware that you needed a boundary with that. My boundary tends to be a lot with energy. And I actively need people, if I'm speaking to them, to be consciously listening to me. If you're multitasking while you're listening to me, I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen, and I don't feel loved. So for me, a boundary, if I'm noticing that, I might make a joke or something like that, and then they're like, oh, you need me to like listen to you right now. And, they'll stop what they're doing. So boundaries are really important if you're living with a group of people. And you can teach this to your kids too. You can teach them like how kids can feel emotions. What are you feeling right now? Where is it in your body? And the more they learn that, the more they're going to be able to communicate what they really need. And then there isn't all this miscommunication or things that end up in conflict, which is key to rebalancing. You want to feel balanced. You don't want to be in conflict. We don't want to be in conflict with ourselves or with others. Develop structure. Now, for some of us, we can fly by the seat of our pants, and that having no structure a day doesn't really bother us. For a lot of us, we need structure. And it took me a while to build a new schedule for my day with this new way of living. And, it's easy to look from the outside, to me or to other teachers or other people, maybe people you admire or something like that, and they're like, oh, they got their stuff together. Yeah, but you know what? It took a while. It takes a while to get your stuff together. Like, be nice to yourself. Be kind. Like, when have you ever in your life been confined to your house? Never. When you learn a new skill, do you expect to be perfect at it in like a day, a week, a couple weeks? No, this is a skill. Living in isolation is like you're really learning a skill set of totally new dynamics with family and with friends and with yourself. Right? So building a new schedule for yourself, something that is really consistent, some really consistent things in your day will help build structure, which helps build grounding in your body, and you'll feel more calm. So maybe you get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you have a big glass of water. Then maybe you go and evacuate, your body, and you have your teeth brushed, and then you have your shower. And that's something you do every day, and you get dressed. Get dressed. Unless you're in Bali and it's like 40 degrees and you can't not just wear underwear, then get dressed. That's a real thing here because it's so hot. So you can even journal, write down a few things. You're like, what am I going to do consistently every day? And I wouldn't necessarily make it something that's like a productive thing, because some of us will put pressure on ourselves, and if we don't complete it, we feel like we're a failure. We didn't do anything, So make it something simple, like your morning routine is the same every day. And if you do that every day, great, or, you do a 20-minute workout every day, like move your body. Super, super important for rebalancing. Move your body, go for a walk, do a 20-minute exercise. Ian and I use an app on our phone. It's the 20-minute exercise. It changes every day. They're pretty simple. It's like 3 rounds or something of these set of exercises. We do it together. It's 20 minutes to like get our heart rate up. And I always feel better for doing it, and it's 20 minutes. So moving your body is super important. If you're someone like a nurse who is moving your body constantly, then you need the opposite. You need some stillness. You'll need this breath work more than necessarily movement, because you're in a state of constant movement. You need the opposite. Okay? So this is where the generalities come in, right? Are there any questions on this so far? Hi, Cheryl. Sorry, just acknowledging who came in. Any questions so far? But I know there's a bit of a delay, so I'll wait a second. Okay. And know that when I'm giving you this information, you may see some parts are like, yeah, I think that really resonates, and then some won't. Maybe they'll resonate like 3 weeks down the line or something. So we've got conscious awareness, acknowledging our feelings, that our feelings are valid. We've got responsibility. This is where we start to implement things for ourselves, non-judgment, building ourselves a schedule for each day. And it doesn't have to be like a really strict one. It's just pick something you do every single day and then do that for a week and be like, okay, I'm going to add something now. I'm going to add one more thing. It takes time. Be really, really kind to yourself, all right? The last kind of phase, and we're going to work into some other self-care, is acceptance. So we can validate our feelings and our emotions and how we're doing. That doesn't necessarily in that moment mean that we're going to necessarily be able to accept them. So validating and accepting them is not necessarily the same thing. So acknowledging or validating is not necessarily the same thing as accepting. So some of us may not be ready to necessarily accept the emotions. But once we start taking responsibility for those emotions, it makes it a lot easier just to simply accept what is. And acceptance is in the terms of like change what you can and accept what you cannot. It's like a philosophy of life. Change what you can, accept what you can't. You know? And because we have a lot less control. I mean, in the yogic standpoint, we don't have control anyways. It's an illusion. It's just the illusion came crashing down with this whole COVID thing for the majority of society. Didn't think of it as an illusion, right? That control. So acceptance can also be working with things you can control in your life. What can you control? I can control what I eat today. I can control maybe how much I sleep. I can control my breath. That's the one we're going to work with the most. I can control, what I choose to do on my day or my day off for the most part. I can control my schedule for the most part. So that's another good journaling technique is what can I control? And then on another side, what can I not control? And that way we stop trying to struggle with those things that we can't control. We can't control how long this is going to last. So we do the best we can in our situations in our life. We do the best we can. This is like an extreme, but we do the best we can. And that shows a lot of compassion and kindness towards ourselves and kind of giving ourselves a little bit of a break. This is very new for most of us. For yogis, this is not new. Isolation is not new. Yogis are probably like jumping up and down in a cave somewhere because like traditional yogis, that's what they do. They'd be in major isolation. That's part of the practice. This is like totally a yogic practice of, really decreasing the externalized world and pulling ourselves deeply into our internal world, which some of us have never done before. And it can be really scary and it can be very ungrounding in a way because we don't realize what we're living with every day. Some of us, that's anxiety or fear. Others, maybe we are taking too much validation outside of ourselves and we're not really connecting to ourselves in a self-loving way. So there's a lot of things going on when you put people in isolation that have never done that before. It's a very internalizing experience. So change what you can and accept what you can't. So it's another good journaling technique. And often with emotions, specifically the one thing that we can control the most at any point of the day, any point of our lives is our breath. And this is huge in yoga, controlling the breath, manipulating the breath, creating new patterns in the breath. And I put in my my Instagram handle it's at me yoga KW, ME yoga KW. And in my link, there's a link to an article about your breath and your brain. And it's one thing for me to like tell you it does this and hopefully give you that experience at the end of this chat. But it's another thing to also read, articles from like, Harvard or Stanford or the University of Michigan who've done testing on people who changing their breathing techniques changes their brain. And how just counting your breath, stimulates the brain cord all the way up to your emotional centers, your memory, and your awareness. So it also decreases the feed to the amygdala, which is our fear center. It's our primal fight and flight center, and it increases awareness and growth in I believe it's the frontal lobe, the hippocampus, which is our ability to go from me to we. So it shifts a lot of the chemicals in the brain. It shifts our ability for awareness, our memory increases, and we have more control over our emotions, and our emotions no longer run our lives through essentially the stimulation in the mind. So the breath is the main tool I'm going to give you today, other than what we've talked about, in shifting how you're feeling. If you're experiencing really intense emotions, or you're feeling a lot of stress, especially, this is going to be really good, especially if you are a nurse or you're working in the health industry, because you can do this on your break in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It does not take very long to shift the brain and to shift the awareness, especially if you practice it. The more you practice it, the faster it'll happen for you. This tool is used a lot. It's called pranayama in yoga. Hello. And it's used to stabilize the prana of the body. So the prana is considered energy. It's another word for energy. Just like chi is a word that's used for the energy flow in India and Hinduism and yoga, it's called prana. It's the same thing, energy. Hi. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these tools to stabilize the prana. So there's two main channels, and there's lots of other ones, but the two main channels in the body run along the spine, the main spine calling the shumna, and it has the main energy channel. And then there's these nadis that cross, like my fingers are doing right now. And each point is a chakra point. I'm not going to talk about that. But the nadis need to balance. Okay? If we are really unbalanced or unstable and the prana in the body is unstable, we will feel unstable. Our immune system is lower, our memory is worse, our cognitive function is worse. So we're going to use the breath to essentially stabilize the energy in the prana in the body, shift the emotional state of the brain, and counting your breath. This is a study, I believe it's in the article I put there on my Instagram, is it creates cardiac coherence. So it stabilizes your heart rate, which then decreases the chance of heart attack or heart-related problems, and then also controlling your breath works with your blood pressure. And a lot of us, our blood pressure has been probably pretty high with watching all of the news and stuff, right? So we're going to do a couple breath techniques with some movement for the first one, and the last piece is one that is called Victory Breath. It's from my teacher, Rod Stryker, and it's very effective diaphragmatic breathing. So I think we've gone over most of the things I wanted to go over today. I just want to ask if anyone has any questions or personal related stories or situations that maybe they didn't get an answer for, or something like that they wish to share. I can take a couple moments now before we move into our practice. While you may be writing some things, please don't be shy. We are in this together, even though we're all in our own individual situations. And hearing stories is very empowering. It's empowering for those that you're sharing with. It's empowering to yourself because it gives that bravery and that courage, and it also lets you be heard and seen and acknowledged. So please don't be shy to share. If we are supporting someone else in our life, I did mention that we can say, can I do anything for you? You can remind them of their strength if they're really feeling like they're having difficulty. You can take care of yourself, because that in turn will always take care of others. You can help them with tasks if you're in the same household with them, and try your best to avoid unasked advice and to avoid minimizing their feelings. Okay, so we're all trying to support each other together. So we're good? No questions? Is that information landing for you? It's always harder on Instagram because I'm like, I can't see you, so I can't see your faces. It doesn't give me an idea of how it's landing for you. These are essentially the tools I use in any difficult situation, whether it's something like this, grieving, anger, sadness, anything like that. These are the tools I use. Conscious awareness, responsibility, and acceptance, and self-care are super important. Super important. It's so nice when everyone says hi to each other. It just feels a little more like we're in a community, right? Like we're connecting. Even though we can't see each other, we can still, hear each other in that sense, which is so nice. Okay. So what I'm going to do, because Instagram's only an hour and this practice is going to be about 45, is I'm going to turn off the live feed and I'm going to turn it back on so we have our space. Okay? And you're going to need a strap of some sort, a blanket, ideally with a little bit of thickness, like not a comforter, but something with a little bit of thickness, and maybe a cushion of some sort. Okay? So go ahead and get ready for your practice. And please make sure you sign back on. Okay? The practice is like the biggest piece of this whole conversation. Because of the breath work involved, we'll do very simple, it's going to seem like really simple movement, but technically this is almost like a level 2 class because of the breath, not physically. The breath, when we start to manipulate your breath, you're starting to really shift the patterns of the mind. And the mind is like a child. It's like a child that's ran free for God knows how long, has had no boundaries, has never been able to hear no for anything. And we start to shift and manipulate your breath, you're starting to tell your mind, no, focus on this. No, focus on this. No, focus on this. And there can be a lot of resistance and sometimes heat in the body and some physical reactions to shifting those patterns and conditioning in your mind. So this is more of a practice for the mind, which is really what we need, because if we can stabilize the mind and the emotions, the body will automatically stabilize with our breath. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to turn it back on so we can do our practice together without interruption. Okay, I'll see you in a minute.
I'm doing it on here in case this is turning into a huge file in case I have.
Okay. All right, we're rejoining. Wonderful. So if you're on this other feed here, just give me a moment. We're going to start our practice in a second, just letting the other avenues rejoin. So if you need a sip of water or go to the washroom really quickly, you could certainly do that. Great to see everyone back. I'm always really excited to share specifically breath-based practices because we're so wrapped up in the asana, the physical practice. We're really missing out on the breath component a lot of the times, not all the time, of course. Like there's some great physical practices where we're really focused on breath, but this is like specifically the breath is the practice today. Okay, not necessarily the movements. We are going to have some alignment and specific cues for our physical body, but ultimately your main focus is going to be your breath. Okay. All right. So we're actually going to start, and just make sure you can still hear me really well. We're going to start on our backs. Okay, head to me, or to the top of your mat because I can't see you. Feet on the floor with the knees bent. So it's a preparation for bridge pose. And I want you to know as we go through this practice, if anything needs to be adjusted for you, please adjust. If you need rest, please rest. And when we're doing breath counts, we're going to be working on extending our exhale, which allows us to release a little bit more emotionally and mentally. And it helps to very much stabilize and ground us. And because where you guys are most of you are at, it's nighttime there, it'll be very, very softening for sleep. I almost fall asleep when I finish this practice. When you're doing your breath work, I'm going to be asking you to do a certain amount of counting in your head. This counting is aligned to the length of your breath. So if I'm inhaling and I ask you to do a 4-count exhale, I'm counting in my head 4 beats from the beginning of my exhale to the end. And I only finish my exhale when I finish the beat. Okay? We're going to be building all the way up to 8 counts. Some of us, we're going to feel a little bit of challenge in that. You want to maybe feel a little challenge, but not so much that it's straining you and you feel like you have to grasp for air. Okay? You want to keep the level of ease in there. So if you don't make it to the 8 counts when we get to that point, it doesn't matter. The piece that matters is the lengthening, slowing of your exhale in the practice, okay? So you do your best to get to the count that I'm requesting, but it's not mandatory. It's really working with the length of your exhale, okay? All right, so you're on your back, feet hip distance apart. Okay? And as we lay down, just take my hair out here. Our knees are right over our heels and our arms are down beside us. Okay. For most of the counts that we do, I'm going to do a neutral, which means there's no count involved. You're just getting used to the movement. And then we'll go into counts. Okay. So as you breathe in, bring your arms overhead, lift your bum off the floor, bridge. The arms are way over your head, chin in. And then exhale, bring everything down. Perhaps the hands will land at the same time as your bum. Good. Now we're going to do, again, an inhale, lift all the way up, root those big toes, arms overhead. And then we're going to exhale for 4 counts in your head. Only finishing when you touch the ground. Okay, an inhale, reach your arms overhead, lift your bum. And then exhale 5 beats, so 5 counts. And you're counting in your own head, and you're starting to slow the movement and the breath. Good. Let's inhale again, reach up overhead. 6 count exhale. It's just a matter of slowing the breath a little more, a little less air expelling at one time. Good. Then inhale again, reach all the way up and over. Then exhale 7 counts. Good. Last time, inhale, reach up overhead. 8 count exhale, or just the longest exhale you can manage without straining too much. Good. Go ahead and bring your knees into your chest. Okay. And your arms down beside you. Not wide, just in nice and close. Okay, we're going to take an inhale at center. And then exhale, straighten your legs, heels powerfully pressed to the sky, and arms come overhead, just like you did in bridge. And then inhale back to center. This is an inhale back to center, arms down beside you, knees bend. Good, okay. And then one more time, inhale to reach up and over, heels pressed to the sky. And then exhale to come down. Good, okay. Sorry, I meant inhale to come down, sorry. So take a full breath in. And try to do 8 counts for your exhale, lifting your legs, pressing through the heels, arms overhead, press, press, press powerfully through the heels. And then inhale back to center. Good, let's do 2 more rounds. Okay. Exhale, we press the heels up, arms overhead, trying to do 8 count exhale. And then inhale back to center. Okay, and one more time. We're going to exhale all the way up. 8 counts. Now back to center. And reach your arms out like a T shape to either sides of the room. Stack your knees over your hips. Your knees are still bent. Okay, breathe in at center. Then we're going to exhale and twist to the left. I'm not mirroring you. Don't let your knees touch the ground. Inhale back to center. Exhale, twist to the right. Don't let your knees touch the ground. Good. Inhale back to center. Do 3 more times both sides. Go ahead on your own, exhaling as you twist, and then gaze in the opposite direction. Coming back to center on the inhale, gaze to center. Exhale, twist to the right, and gaze to the left. But do 2 more rounds on your own. So 2 to the left, 2 to the right. So 2 cycles. Okay, so keep going. Nice long exhales. Okay, we'll meet at center. And we're going to put our hands on our shins. Individually on the shins, a little bit down from your knees. Okay. I'm going to inhale the legs away from you. Keep your grip as best you can. And as you exhale, squeeze your knees into your chest. Good. Inhale. We're going to lengthen the arms, knees away from the face. And then exhale, squeeze it in, pull your navel in, and keep your tailbone reaching towards the floor. So long back. Good. Inhale, knees away from your face. And exhale, squeeze in. Just lengthening your exhale. Okay, one more time. Now hold your knees in, keep them fairly snug, not a huge amount of pressure. Try to root the base of your pelvis a little more to the floor and the mid ribs to the floor as well. So you still have a little space in your low back from the floor. Okay? As you breathe in, stay still. As you exhale, do 8 counts out and squeeze the knees a little bit closer. Navel in. Okay, do this 3 more times. The inhale, there's no movement. The exhale is 8 counts out and squeeze the navel in. Okay, 2 more rounds. Last one. And release your feet to the floor, knees bent, arms down beside you, and just rest. Take a restful moment, observing how the body is responding and the feeling of your breath. There's a lot of patience involved and acknowledgement as well. We're constantly acknowledging how the body is responding and the mind is responding to this breath work. Go ahead and turn to one side and come up onto your knees. Okay, if this is sensitive, you can put your blanket under your knees. We're going to continue with our lengthened exhale, the 8 counts. So as you inhale, reach your arms overhead. And then exhale, fold forward, reach your hands towards your heels, forehead towards block, cushion, or ground. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, 8 counts to come down. Navel in, chin in. Inhale, reach for the sky. Two more times on your own pace. 8 counts out. When you're done that last 8 count, stay in child's pose for a breath. Breathe into the back of your heart. Yeah, so let's go ahead and come up to standing. Okay, your feet will be hip distance apart. Hands just at the bottom of your bum, like the crease of your bum and the back of your hamstrings. Take a breath in to grow tall. And then exhale, start to fold forward, sliding the hands down the backs of your legs. Bend the knees as you need. Tuck your chin, coming all the way down. Inhale, as we rise up, lead with the heart. Slide the hands up the back of our legs, shoulders back, coming all the way to standing. Okay, now we're going to work with some retention. So instead of an 8-count exhale, we're going to do a 7-count exhale, plus at the very bottom of the exhale, we're going to hold our breath out for 1 beat. And then rise back up. And then we're going to do 6 and 2, 5 and 3, 4 and 4. Okay? And we just do our best, yeah? Try to keep a long spine as you do this, but bending the knees as you need. Inhale, grow tall. Exhaling for 7 beats. Hands down the back of our thighs. Chin in, navel in. When you get to the bottom of your breath, hold it for a second. 1 full beat in your head. And then inhale, rise, lead with the heart, push through the heels, hands up the backs of the legs. Exhale now for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Hold the breath out for 2 full beats. And then inhale to rise. Hands up the back of the legs. Exhale, fold for 5. 4, 3, 2. When you get down there, you're going to hold your breath for 3 seconds and feel a little bit of the powerful stillness that resides in the retention. Good. And then inhale, we'll come back up, hands up the legs. Last one. Exhale, fold for 4, 3, 2, and we'll hold our breath out for 4 seconds. Rise back up. Eyes open, chin in a little bit, and stand in Tadasana Mountain Pose. You may experience some lightheadedness. That's normal. We may also start the stabilization of our mind. Very grounded yet light in the heart. And feet are hip distance apart still. Inhale, reach your arms up overhead. And sit your bum back and down into a chair pose. If our shoulders are really sensitive, we could have our arms forward. That's okay. Otherwise, let's try to keep the arms up. And we're going to stay here for 6 breaths. Just stable, long breaths. Okay, shins draw back a little, so we're getting into the outer hip. And we're not clawing the toes to the mat. Try to keep your breath as smooth and as stable as you can. Okay, let's come up to standing. And come to the front of our mat. Right foot forward, left foot back. Okay, warrior 1. So a little space between our feet. You can probably see it in the video. And our back toes are just slightly turned out, just a little bit. Our front leg's going to stay straight, so let's unbend it if you rebend. And we're going to have a micro bend in our knee. I'll do it from this angle. I'm not mirroring you today because I'm on so many channels. I don't want to confuse anyone else. Okay, so we're going to square off our hips, right hip back, left hip forward. Okay, micro bend your front knee and press powerfully through your back heel. Bring your right hand behind you and your left arm up. We'll try and keep our left arm really straight. Okay, take a nice big breath in, pull your navel in. And then exhale 8 counts to fold forward, but keep as much length until you have no choice but to let the arm come down a little bit. Okay, and then inhale, lead with the thumb, the sternum coming up, squeeze your bum. Exhale for 8 counts. Folding forward, draw that right hip back. Inhale to rise. Squeeze your bum. Pull the shoulder blade into your back. Exhale, 8 counts. Try to keep the front leg relatively straight. Nice and slow. Inhaling to rise. Last one on your own. Inhale to rise all the way up. Squeeze your bum, shoulder blade into the back of your heart. Hands to your hips and step to the front of your mat and pause. Eyes open or closed. Just notice if there's a new sensation or current to the side of your body. And let's do the other side. Okay, so we'll now step the right foot back. So it's about 3 feet or so. Some of us will be shorter, some will be longer. And the front knee is micro bent, but not bent. Okay, navel in, left hip draws back, left hand goes to the base of your spine, palm faces back and out, right arm up, nice and straight. Okay, breathe in to grow tall, squeeze your bum. Exhale, start to fold, 8 counts out. Try to keep that right arm nice and long. Chin in, navel in. Inhale, rising, pressing through the feet, squeeze your bum, pull the shoulder blade in the back of the heart. Exhale, 8 counts. Stretch out through that right elbow. Inhaling to rise. Remember, we just do our best, 8 counts out. It might mean not going all the way to the floor. Please do the last one on your own. Step to the front of your mat when you're done. Allow for a moment of rest, rooting, and natural breath. Noticing any heat or sensation in the body. Noticing a subtle calming of the mind with the intense focus required on the breath. Step your feet nice and wide, so you might want to turn the other way on your mat. I have 2 mats, so it's very convenient. We're going to interlace our fingers behind our bum. Feet parallel or turn slightly in. I'm going to lift our thumbs off our bum. This is where a strap can come in handy between our hands. I'd rather you have more space for breath than to try and get those hands together. Okay? Roll the shoulders back, shoulder blades into the back of your heart. Breathe in to lengthen up, navel in, and then start to fold forward. Lift your thumb off of your bum. Reach your knuckles towards the ceiling if they're interlaced or with a strap, and then let them re-relax. Okay, staying here, lengthen that breath out. We're going to stay here for a full minute of silence. Okay. Deep, prolonged exhale. Nothing to do here except to let go. Hands are still interlaced. Soft jaw and tongue was relaxed. And bring your hands to your hips, bend your knees, root through your feet. You maybe squeeze your bum to rise slowly to standing. If you get head rushes or low blood pressure, let's just pause at the top with the chin down, the eyes wide open. Stepping to the front of your mat, hands wherever's comfortable, eyes could be closed, and we'll land in rest once more. Just watching and observing. Let's come down onto all fours, hands and knees. If your knees are sensitive, put a little cushioning under your knees, okay? And continue our breath work. Inhale, dip your belly, lift your heart and gaze a little bit for cow pose. And then exhale for 7 beats, come back into a child's pose. And inhale, back up. Lift your heart, lift your gaze. And then exhale, child's pose, 7 beats out, 7 counts. But when you get there this time, at the end of your exhale, you're going to hold the breath out for a full beat. Then inhale, come back up, tabletop, lift your heart, lift your gaze. Exhale, 7 counts to child's pose, and then you'll hold the breath out for a 1 beat retention. Okay, 2 more times on your own. There's no count on the inhale, just the 7 count on the exhale. And when you're done your last retention, just hold in your posture, but don't hold your breath. Hold in child's pose. This is our resting spot. Let's turn to lay on our back. As you lay down, you're going to grab your strap or your blanket or whatever you're using as a strap. I'm using an actual strap because I was lucky enough to borrow one. Knees bent, feet on the floor. Okay. As we lay down, you're going to go ahead and take your right foot up with the strap around the sole of your right foot and straight up to the sky. Now, some of us may have the mobility to have your fingers to your toes. Okay, we're pressing up through the heel. Otherwise, our strap or blanket or whatever we're using, okay, goes on the bottom of our right foot, left knee is still bent, and we're going to gently draw down the top of our foot towards our face, whether it's with our fingers or our hands with the strap. We're going to do our best to keep the pelvis rooted and our mid-ribs rooted on the ground as well. And we're pressing up powerfully through the right heel, drawing the toes down. And we're going to try and, again, keep that smooth exhale, lengthened, fluid, and slow. If we wish, we can straighten the left leg, but if it hinders your breath, then better not to, just to have the foot down. Remember, this is about the breath, and it's not so much about the physical shape of the body, although we're using that to help us. So we don't have to go to what we think is the harder form. If it's hindering our breath, then we're doing the opposite of what the posture is offering us. Okay, just smooth, extended exhales. Pressing up through the heel, and just notice if you're really pulling your leg to your face, that might also hinder your exhale. So we might need to be softer on how close the leg is to our face, but still be able to press through our right heel. Okay, let's do one more round. Press, press, press through that right heel. And then we're going to relax the foot to the floor, knees bent, both feet. Hands where it's comfortable, maybe close your eyes and just notice if you can, what you can feel through your right leg. You may be able to notice somewhat of a current running from the base of your skull down your right side all the way to your foot. vibrational quality. Okay, let's do the other side. Left leg up. Right knee is bent. We're going to find that nice middle point for the hamstring so it's not too strained. Maybe our fingers to our toe if we feel comfortable with that. And gently contract downwards towards you. So the top of the foot draws down and the left heel presses up. And regain that lengthening, smooth exhale. Okay, 4 breaths. You have the option of straightening the leg, but it's not necessary. And start to notice how the mind calms when we focus on the breath. Probably close to your last round now. And release that foot down, knees bent, feet to the floor, strap beside you, arms down, and simply see how you feel between both legs now. And come up to seated. This is where you could be on your cushion, if you'd like. Okay. And remember, I'm not mirroring you, so it'll likely be the opposite of what I'm saying, because I think Instagram is a mirror. We're going to take our left hand to our right knee, and our right hand on top of our left hand. And if you feel like there's a lot of weight in your right sit bone, you may need to throw a block or a book under your knee. If this doesn't work at all, we could do it like this. Okay, where our hands are on our knees and our feet are in front of us. Okay, so left hand down, right hand on top. Inhale, lift the spine, then exhale, twist to the right. Then inhale, come out of the twist about halfway. And then exhale, twist a little further to the right. Hold your breath out and twist a little further. Inhale, halfway out. Exhale, twist. Hold the breath out and twist a little further. Inhale, halfway out. Twist. Hold the breath out, twist a little further. Now stay here, keep breathing. Turning the gaze over the shoulder. Okay, come back to center and we'll change sides. Okay, right hand on the knee, left hand on top. Could be the thigh if that's nicer. Okay. Inhale, lift tall, and then exhale, twist. Inhale, halfway out. Exhale, twist. Hold the breath out. Twist a little further. Inhale, halfway out. Twist. Hold the breath out. Twist a little further. Inhale, halfway out. Exhale, twist. Holding when you get there and then twisting a little further. Hold here, but don't hold your breath. Back to regular breathing. Gaze over the left shoulder. And come back to center. Let me just notice how you're feeling. Okay, this is really important that we might have a little cushion under our bum because we're going to do a little bit of breath work. We will likely go to about 9:35, just for those of you that like to know timing, just because of the victory breath we're going to do. Okay, so you sit up nice and tall. We're going to learn how to do Ujjayi breathing. You might have heard of this. You might already know how to do this. If you know how to do this, please start it right now. If you're unfamiliar with Ujjayi breath, you're going to take your right hand. This is just how we learn how to constrict our throat. You're going to put it in front of your mouth. You're going to take a big breath in. And you go ha, like you're fogging up a window on your hand so you can feel the moisture. Do you feel that restriction in your throat? Let's do it again. Inhale. Do your ha. Good. Now inhale again. Do your ha, but halfway through close your mouth and keep doing it. Again, inhale nose. Exhale mouth with that ha sound. Close your lips and keep doing it. Good. Now inhale through your nose, put your hand down. And then exhale, and I'll do the sound for you. Okay, it's a bit of a raspy sound, like an oceanic breath. Okay, now keep doing that. You don't need to make it too forceful, like ease off if you're like, whoa, that's a lot of vibration. And just keep that Ujjayi breathing, that restriction in the back of your throat is going to help you lengthen your breaths. Okay, palms face up or down. Close your eyes if it's comfortable and safe for you. And keep doing that Ujjayi breath. Just notice where your body's at and how you're feeling. Okay, I'm going to invite you to take a 6-count inhale and an 8-count exhale. Again, remember, we're just doing our best. And do 4 rounds of that. 6 counts in, 8 counts out. If you're a little behind or ahead of me, that's fine. Now we're going to shift into 6 in, 10 out. If it's too much, keep doing the 8. Okay, 6 counts in and 10 counts out. And we're going to do 4 rounds, and you can count on your fingers if you'd like, if that's helpful. And we're becoming very methodical with our breath, with our exhale. Consistent. And we're changing our perspective to life is really all about how we shape our minds and less about our bodies. So it's how we shape our minds and less about our bodies and how we see the perspective of our life. Now you're welcome to stay with 6 in and 10 out, or you can move to 6 in and 12 out. You're really slowing the breath down. And when we start to get to that very subtle, very slow exhale, you might even start to feel like the brain starts to shut down a little bit. Like parts of the brain that are not needed or overactive start to shut down. Six in, up to 12 out. Now these last breaths, you can kind of let go of the breath a little bit, counting it. And just simply watch the abdominal area just rise and collapse. You might feel that abdomen rise and collapse. Remembering that we're changing our perspective of life by shaping our minds with breath. Now you're welcome to keep your eyes closed as you transition. You might have to open the eyes. And we're going to shift into what's called a victory breath, which is also from my teacher, Rod Stryker. This is where all of this breath technique comes from. And we're going to take our blanket. Hopefully, if you don't have one, it's okay. But if you have one, you're going to do a tri-fold, which means it's one inwards, one piece inwards. And then the other side, you're going to flip inwards, which makes a nice long line with your blanket. Okay? If you're just joining, I'm about to do victory breath. If you would like to join, just grab a blanket and do a 3-fold, which looks like this. And you're going to put that blanket lengthwise so that your head will be on it all the way down to about your mid-spine. Okay, so if you're just joining, you can do this breath work with me. And you want to make sure that, I'm going to just roll that top part of my blanket up, that your bottom of your blanket is maybe about 5 inches from your bum. So it's landing a little higher. And it's really important that our nose, our chin, and our breastbone are all in line with one another. So if your chin is tucking in, it's going to affect the quality of your breath. And if this is in the wrong placement by an inch or two, it will affect your breath. So adjust the blanket along your spine, away from your waistline, till you feel like a little bit of an easier breath. And then lengthen your legs out and your arms out as well. Okay, and close your eyes. And we'll just take the first minute here to acknowledge our breathing and how our body is feeling. I'm going to move a little closer so it's easier to hear me. Okay, so we're acknowledging how we're feeling in our breath from that practice. We want to have our awareness to the pit of our stomach, watching the rise and fall, with nothing to force. The abdomen is rising and falling. Okay, and that ujjayi breath we were doing earlier that you just learned, just apply that now, that ha on the exhale with your mouth closed. Very subtle, soft. Don't make it intense or loud. Very soft. You actually save energy when it's softer. And you're going to start to please fill downward with your breath, filling the basin of the pelvic bowl, so very bottom of the breath. And you're going to see in your mind's eye the breath moving upwards. So as you fill the basin of your pelvic floor with your breath, see it in your mind's eye slightly moving upwards. We're just going to do this for the first 2 minutes, just that deep fill. So it's not full diaphragmatic breathing. It's just starting at the very bottom of the pelvis, as low as you can breathe towards the belly for about 2 minutes. As we kind of build this, we're going to focus on diaphragmatic breathing, emphasizing the soft lifting of your navel, filling the side body and the lower back. Trying to focus on it as smoothly and slowly for the breath as possible, filling the lower level of our lungs. As you breathe this way, you want to find just the right speed for you. So you're not straining, but you're breathing as slowly as possible from lower ribs, fanning, and the abdomen slowly expanding. And just as slow, the navel would drop as you empty the lungs. Now, if you're finding the right challenge between finding your capacity and slowing the breath down, you might already be noticing your mind's becoming a little quieter. deep focus on balancing the capacity and the pace. And this next phase is we're going to complete our diaphragmatic breathing. Just as you had filled the basin of the pelvic bowl, I want you to first see the breath expanding upwards and sideways and backwards on the inhale, moving into the chest. The last part of the inhale is the collarbones float up. So on our inhale, we're going to see the breath expanding upwards, sideways, backwards, touching the collarbones last. And as you exhale, you're going to start by actually releasing just below your navel. Then allow the collarbones to sink, ribs to narrow, and the belly to empty. Complete volume, yet doing it as slowly as you can and balanced, while sustaining absolute fluidity in the in and exhale. Try to remain mindful of how this breathing is influencing your mind. Each breath a little more complete, simultaneously slowing the pace of the breath. So we're following the breath like a wave through our body. Inhale, starting at pelvic floor, belly, ribs, chest, and collarbones. Navel relax a little, then collarbones, ribs narrow, and navel relaxes. As this becomes more meditative, eventually you may notice that the inhale is no longer pulling and the exhale is no longer pushing. That there's a subtle balance coming through. The breath just seems to kind of cascade through the throat, nasal passage to the lungs. Please continue for next moment. If there's any roughness or agitation in your breath, try to relax more deeply and keep it fluid and slow. Noticing the mind resting in the interior of your being. We're going to return to our first phase where it's simply restful awareness on the abdomen. So you can let go of the control if there is any still. Just all of your awareness on that rise and gentle softening of your navel region. More relaxed you become, you may find that the breath naturally starts to suspend because of the slow, soft pace. can find that if it spontaneously pauses, you're resting just for a moment on the in-between of the exhale and the inhale. Recognizing the calmness or the sense of awareness within. And you're welcome to stay here a little bit longer if you wish. Some of you might even be partially asleep. I'm going to conclude this class just with a few comments, so you're welcome to simply stay as you are, no need to get up or look at the screen. This workshop is free or donation based depending on your individual means and situation, because we may be all in the same thing going on, but we all have individual things going on within our lives, yeah? If you wish to donate, please, you can send it to our beautiful studio, okay, Moto Yoga Stratford, which is info@motoyogastratford.com. You would just put any question in for your e-transfer, and you would put Moto Yoga, one word, as your password. Our studio owner is our fearless leader. She's been so wonderful in supporting us, both in community and financially, and unfortunately the business has not yet qualified for help, and we want to keep our community strong. So if you have the ability to donate, please do. If you don't, then this is simply a gift to you in a time of need. If you have the means and you wish to also offer something to myself, my handle is @meyogakw or mandyelizabethyoga@gmail.com. But if you had a choice between me and the studio, please donate to the studio. I'd rather see it go there. And hopefully we'll have another opportunity next week to join together. If you'd like any more information on what we spoke about today, you can connect on my Instagram page @meyogakw. There's a link to my newsletter, and there's also a link to the brain breath article, which can give you a lot of things that I didn't want to get into the technicalities. It's just not enough time to do that. If you'd like to read a little bit of the science behind it. And I also have my newsletter in there as well on my Instagram page if you'd like to get recipes and regular videos. I'm putting up regular videos on YouTube now too, to help during this time of kind of chaos and a deep need for inner connection and rebalancing. If you would feel comfortable with sharing how you're feeling after this practice, to do that practice of conscious awareness again. How am I feeling? What are the feelings in this moment? And maybe even you could say where they are in your body. You can type it in to the little chat and share with everyone, and give courage to everyone, and acknowledge and validation to everyone and how they're feeling. If you wish to add that, you can do that now. I'm feeling pretty calm, a little bit hot from the practice. Sometimes when change happens in the body, for me, heat happens. I'll get a little hot, and then I'll cool down through the day. So yeah, I'm feeling calm, stable, a little bit of vibrancy there after the practice for sure. Oh, good. I'm glad, Robin. And this will be available for 24 hours. So if you want to do it again tomorrow, you can always just skip to the practice if you don't want to listen to the first section, since it's its own section on the page. So we have calm and peaceful, beautiful. And it's okay if you came out of this and you're still stressed. Then we need to acknowledge that, right? And it's a practice. Breath practices, the more you do them, the more it will integrate faster. And the breath we just did, that diaphragmatic breathing, can be done seated. If you happen to be a nurse or you're working a lot, or a cashier, you're a frontline workers, cashiers, anyone who's in an essential service, you could do this 5 minutes on your break, this calming breath. Diaphragmatic breathing, like a wave, right? Lengthening our exhale. Breath is your piece of control in your life right now, at any time, at any moment. If you want to keep sharing, if you're just kind of moving out of your slumber, maybe you're in a little bit of slumber, you're welcome to offer your feelings to be validated. And if you want to say where in your body, you can do that too. I feel quite free actually right along my kind of tummy and heart area, for sure. You're welcome, guys. If anyone also has suggestions to Krista for workshops they would like to see online, you can also email her at info@motoyogastratford.com, and I will do my best to accommodate. I will keep doing these as long as there's space on the schedule and you guys want to see them. You're so welcome.